Hello to a new episode of the BIM Voice. Today I have the pleasure to talk with Khalid David from TrackFlow from US. Hello Khalid, how are you doing?
I'm well. Thanks for having me today.
Please introduce yourself briefly a little bit, and after that share your screen and please go on with your presentation.
Well, I'm Khalid David, founder and CEO of TrackFlow. Grew up in the construction industry. Come from three generations of carpenters. Formerly trained as a civil engineer. I'm a builder first, technologist second, and I believe technology is all about the new tools that that builders need to get the job done.
Sounds very good. Please go ahead with your presentation.
Okay, so today I'm gonna share a little bit about what we do at TrackFlow and what we think is happening in the industry and what's next. My goal is to kind of set some context to how this problem exists, and hopefully we can have a discussion around what are the future possibilities around with data coming from the construction site, and particularly data around cost. So let me just share my screen. So we are TrackFlow, construction financials done right. And to kind of set the context, today we're going to talk about a problem called change orders. And simply put, change orders are unforeseen changes to the project scope. If if you're a large commercial builder, you see this all the time. And then you also understand that there's a culture on the job site where you have to get things done first and worry about the change orders later. And when these change orders pile up and become a problem, it's often a leading cause of projects going into financial ruin. So it's I call it the most volatile line item on a construction pay requisition. And this is kind of where we really focus in terms of where we're capturing data and where we're understanding how the project is performing. And change orders is just the first part of it. It's something that we do because it's such a big pain, but there's an entire AIA construction requisitions space that does over $1 billion in any given year and a $10 billion global industry on digital construction payments. So today we're going to talk about change orders, but change orders is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of what we can be able to derive around how projects are performing and how we can use project cost data and digital payments to now create new insights on decisions that we can make around the job site. So why are change orders such a big pain? So in any typical, for the most part, we're talking about large commercial sites. You're going to have a project owner over here on your left. You're going to have your general contractors here in your orange. Those are those large general contracting firms. You have your subcontractors here in the blue, and including the crew. The guys with the hard hats, they're the guys on the field managing the work every day. And the guys with the laptops, they're in the back office. And when an unforeseen change happens on site, all 5 to 6 of these stakeholders need to be in agreement with what happened, why it happened, who's responsible, and ultimately who's going to pay for it. And this process alone is often managed as a paper process. On top of that, oftentimes change orders doesn't just affect one trade. It affects not just your steel guy, your glass guy. So you can multiply these subcontractors by 5 or 6, and you see how quickly this problem can become huge. On top of all of that, this is primarily managed as a paper process. I'm sure we've all seen those paper ticket books with the pink and yellow, those pink and yellow sheets, carbon copies that now has to be distributed. Not everything from if tickets are signed on time to when the paperwork gets back to the office for billing, all of these things can exacerbate the financial risk on the job site while also managing a physically moving construction project. This is all on top of your base contract. So any breakdown in this process can really become troublesome, and that's really where a lot of the bottleneck and the pain comes from. That creates the financial risk associated with change orders. It's just getting 6 people to be in agreement but documenting that on a piece of paper with pink and yellow carbon copies can be quite a challenge.
Let me ask you this. What is your problem with paper? What is wrong with paper, man? I like paper.
Paper in and of itself is not bad. Um, it's simple. It forces you to have a conversation. It's the easiest way to jot something down. The biggest missed opportunity with paper is the ability to provide backup. So the ability to add photos, add videos, to document who signed it and when it was signed. The ability to be able to act on the information that's happening in that paper. That's what's really missed. I was in a sales meeting yesterday, explaining to this new potential client about the time savings, and his biggest concern was, hey, if my guys aren't talking with the superintendent, then I'm not sure if it's going to get signed. And I had to kind of reassure him that your guys still have to interact. The part of the conversation piece that's necessary to move this thing forward, that's still there. We're just now giving you new tools to have a better understanding of what happened. So paper's not bad, but paper misses a bunch of opportunity to understand what's happening.
Yeah, and it's very easy to lose it.
Yeah, oh,
Especially,
yes.
so let's not forget about that. Yeah, difficult to keep track of it, easy to lose it, and difficult to share it as well,
Yeah.
right?
The infamous gang box or locker or desk drawer full of tickets is something that we've heard over and over. A bunch of they're just a stack of paperwork. No one knows that, it's $50,000 in cost sitting in a drawer. And then now you're in closeout and you're finally breaking down Shantytown, and you find out, 3 months after the fact that there's all these missed costs.
Yeah, and for example, if you want to share something with someone that is on another place, you need to travel there, you need to drive there, you need to go there, or to send him a envelope, right? A lot of wasted time.
Yeah, especially in this current times where you have to do so much right now with under very different constraints.
Yeah, this is this is exactly like the the last a nail in the coffin. Like
Yeah,
this helps you actually to avoid unnecessary contacts.
yeah, and that's also another piece. So in a nutshell, so what we do is we try to streamline that information. One of our philosophies is that um, and I guess lean practices is that frontline worker, but you have to make sure that you capture information from the guy who swings the hammer every day, that guy who typically carries the ticket book. And we believe this philosophy is very important because oftentimes you see companies think that as long as you get an owner involved, you get the general contractor involved, that you're going to be able to capture the information that you want. Our approach is, hey, you have to get that guy who does the work every day involved, because it's easier to aggregate that information upward and make it digestible for the more sophisticated user. But if you make something really complex and you miss out on the simplicity, then it becomes very, very hard to try to get them to fit into what you've built.
Sure, makes sense.
So what we do, we create a process that allows that foreman to contact the GC superintendent, back to the subcontractor's project manager, back to the GC project manager, then over to the owner's rep. So instead of this being a paper documentation, email, and phone calls, we give them a platform where they can see all of that kind of in one simple place and be able to kind of hold each other accountable as it moves along the process. And we did that by taking that paper book, that ticket book, and turn it into a digital experience. We want to make sure it was clean and simple and really focused at that guy who, I know we all have that 50-year-old uncle who doesn't really text, that guy could use it. And that was our rubric for, hey, does this make sense? But that piece about the power that digital creates, we gave them a lot. They have a lot more robustness in terms of being able to add information. Before they could just write a description, now they can snap a photo, they can record a video, they can add voice notes. If they're struggling with text, any mobile device, you have speech to text. So now we're giving that guy on the field a data-rich mobile device to not just say, hey, I needed 3 extra guys to move this cabinet. You can snap a photo and say, this is why it didn't fit. You can document the 3 extra guys. And all of that information that flows along the process, as opposed to being, hey, remember we had that conversation, and things like that. So we give them a data-rich tool that allows them to turn what was once a ticket book into a more robust ticket creating experience.
Sounds very nice, very, very smart.
And then we take the entire approval process online. So I'm sure you guys have all used Docusign now since COVID-19 has happened. Very similar. All the stakeholders can be alerted right when the ticket's created to when it gets priced. And now everyone kind of has a better idea about what's going on, where they're at in the process, and we're mitigating the loss, the financial risk created simply by not having people on the same page. You're having one trade work overtime thinking that they're going to get paid on some PCO number, and that engineer on the GC side says, hey, we never approved that, and you need to stop because you've already maxed out that budget. Let's reassess. But oftentimes projects are moving so fast that when you finally stop, you're like, hey, we've ran up $100,000 in cost, and we didn't necessarily have approval, and that leads to some of those financial disputes.
Yes, indeed.
So what does that mean as an organization? So as an organization, we help companies reduce financial risk in a nutshell. We help them move money and take money from being in a financial risky state to, hey, we understand how this cost is allocated. Um, and in 2020, right, this is from November, but right at the end of November, we're updating for the end of the year now. We had helped companies, we processed around 12 million in change orders, and we're averaging around 500K a month. And the way we see that is, in every month, we're helping reduce financial risk by $500,000 across our project portfolios. And last year, we helped move at least $12 million from, hey, this is at risk, we don't know who's going to pay for it, and this could be a financial liability, to, hey, it's locked down. That was allocated to allowance. That's under a PCO number. We know exactly where this is going to be, and it's no longer a risk to the project.
I see.
And we've been working with very large commercial contractors in New York City, companies like Turner, Prince Carpentry, Joyce, Top Rock, Metro Walters, Oxford Developers. We're very proud of our early customer base, and these are large union contractors in New York City. I think I mentioned coming from a family of carpenters, but my dad's actually in local 157 union, so that the built industry is something that we've been able to. We've resonated with them, so we're in this. We're in it together, if you will.
Nice.
So all that aside, so what does this all mean? Okay, this is great for track 12. Well, let's take a step back and think about what you actually do when you track change orders and you're reducing financial risk. Well, the way we look at it is the blue line is what is your base contract. And by helping change orders, we're actually looking at how costs are changing in every given month on your base contract. And we're almost capturing the variability of the project price in any given month. And once you capture that and you start understanding what the variability of the project price in any given month, you can use simple linear regressions to start to project how project costs are going based by understanding how project cost of the variability compared to the base plan. And this is the thing that really gets us excited about what the future can hold in terms of when you have all these stakeholders connected. How can we as project managers begin to not only understand how our costs are changing, but be able to use that data to predict how the costs will change over the next, over the life of projects, And these are the things that we're really excited about, and these are the things that we're laying the foundation for in terms of how do we now introduce machine learning tools into this process. But what we discovered is that you can take it a step further. Not only do we capture, let's say, price. Let's say there's a possibility we can do price prediction, being able to anticipate cost overruns in real time as changes are created. But because we capture an approval process, we also are understanding how stakeholders impede or speed up an approval process. So we all know, if you've been in the industry, you always have a hunch. There's a guy who's like really great, and you have these hunches that, hey, every time someone goes to this person, it slows down. Well, is there opportunity for people analytics to almost be able to, let's say, I won't say as far as giving people a score, but imagine if you can now, if I'm quantifying approval time and approval cost as a function of variables, and the people is also part of those variables. And because they are, you can almost kind of rank how effective or ineffective they are. And what if you now, instead of having hunches in terms of what's the A team and the B team, you start to be able to understand and make decisions around change orders because of who's a part of the approval process. And these are the things, these are discussions that I like to kind of have today and explore and kind of pontificate on, in terms of what if you could take those hunches and say, hey, listen, Johnny, we're gonna put Johnny on one thing because we know, he might hold it up, and Liz crushes it when it comes to these things, and we have to now make decisions from a team level based off of what we're seeing in the data in terms of how do we reduce this financial risk. And the last thing was that we're thinking about is, now that we're seeing this data, can we start anticipating when a subcontractor is have overutilized their capital? Can we be one of those people to help say, hey, this company may need a line of credit, they may need an advance on their receivables because their base contract has gone, their change order contract has gone above 30%, 40%, 15%. Who knows what the number is? But now we're starting to understand whether the triggers to say, hey, these companies may need additional access to capital, and being able to alert projects a lot earlier than waiting till they're at a point where they've used their whole line of credit trying to keep up with these change orders, and now they're kind of in over their head, and being able to let the general contractors know, hey, maybe we should advance some of these receivables. Hey, we need to actually focus on this subcontractor and get their change orders approved because we've kind of overutilized them. And these are the kind of three things that we're seeing emerging and this is just capturing one little piece of the construction project cost. But these are the things that we're seeing can be done with the data that we're capturing, by using some machine learning tools. So, yeah, I'd love if we could just unpack them and explore them, and I guess we could come back to that. I got a little bit I could just close out, but it's up to you. How do you
Yeah.
want to go?
So first, I would like to ask you some questions that I have in mind right now, and after that, would be nice to show us the interface, the platform inside a little bit, how it works. First and foremost, is this only for contractors, or there are any other stakeholders that can use this application?
So right now, our focus is mostly on contractors. We're seeing that we're definitely seeing interest from architects, engineers, anyone who needs to be a part of the approval process, including owners and owners reps. We kind of the way we kind of see that as those are the users that general contractors need to get their job done a little bit. So we are primarily focused on contractors, mainly because usually any changes that still happen in the design stage, it's usually not that big of a deal. It's usually, you know, we got to change this up, change that up. It can be done discussion. It's once the project is live and going that changes have these huge financial impacts. So it is not just for contractors. Any person who needs to have insight, who needs to weigh in on a change order process, we welcome onto the platform. But our main customers are contractors. We help them in that process to make sure that these stakeholders are in agreement.
Okay, I understand. Now let's go back to the roots. And, what happened while you were working that inspired you and frustrated you so hard that you decided to start this adventure?
Man, well, it's kind of a so my story was well, I was a subcontractor with my dad and uncle. They were the tradesmen, so they ran the field crew, and I was responsible for the proposals, the cost, stuff like that. And that was when I first struggled with how do you, as costs change on site and you're on site kind of running things, how do you ultimately be able to document that if you don't have like a mobile tool? So that was my first kind of taste that, hey, this can be really frustrating and difficult. But what really came up, what really kind of defined this path for me was that I was working at Turner Construction in New York City, and I was hired as a safety engineer. And as a safety engineer, I was helping them use data to make decisions around their safety performance. And because I was doing this data stuff, I was a part of a lot of the internal data groups. I ended up joining this innovation team that was building internal software. And I was part of this team, and we built a lot of things. And the one thing the one thing that we did well was an internal general contractor change management solution. And I ended up spending years talking with project managers, talking with project engineers. Sometimes when a project will get into a certain state, they will bring in a change order engineer just to manage change orders. And I spent years just helping them solve this problem. And I realized that it wasn't sexy enough that a lot of companies were out there trying to solve it. It wasn't like, hey, we're going to be the new drawing platform or 3D, you know, what have you. So there wasn't a lot of very interest. It was kind of like a niche. I won't call it boring. It mattered to senior vice presidents, but it was a problem that you wouldn't get exposed to until you were kind of further along in your career. But with oftentimes these major firms, their fees were like 3%, and change orders will make or break if the solution, if the project was profitable or not. So after spending years doing that, eventually Turner decided to shut down their internal solutions because there was enough solutions popping up elsewhere that they felt like they could outsource it. Um, I left that experience really feeling like I got exposed and that there was so much more to do, that if there was really a company that really focused on this, that it could be helpful. So I left Turner and I spent 2 years at MIT and really understanding what the technology, what the state of technology was and what we could bring into these problems. And I decided I want to focus on solving this problem for the subs. And in doing so, everything kind of came full circle. And within a year of just working with predominantly subs, we were able to roll out a general contractor solution that kind of tied it back up. So for me, it was really being exposed to this problem at a very high level, and at the same time understanding that it was so niche and so obscure that it wasn't necessarily the sexiest thing that people go into, and that I kind of had an advantage that I knew the pain points of these senior level project managers, and that's kind of that was part of the reason. Not part of the reason, that was a driving force, but ultimately it's I wanted to make sure that I was adding new tools for construction for construction professionals. I felt like this was an area that had a lot of expertise, and I felt like I can help companies by adding this tool to their toolbox.
Yeah. How was the start? How were the first days, and are you on track with your expectations? And
Oh man, and so I was lucky in the sense that and I got a slide for this. So I was lucky in the sense that I um I came out of MIT's entrepreneurship accelerators. So I spent all this years solving these problems, and they pretty much put us through the ringer to prove that that we didn't just have hunches. We had to interview 50 contractors, and we had to talk to them about their pain points, and we had to document and prove that this was enough of a problem that it could be a real business around it. And that was really helpful, but it was all in this academic sense, right? It was all kind of protected. Then we were part of Delta V, one of their accelerators. And after Delta V, I felt like, hey, we really had something. Um, and shoot, man, last year we had after I graduated in 2019, we had a few early customers. We joined a Metaprop NYC, which is a prop tech real estate investor, and we went through the accelerator, and we were doing really well. And then we launched. We left the accelerator in February of 2020, and then the end of 2020, we won the Harvard Black New Venture competition, and then COVID hit. And we were riding the wave, and we definitely on it. And then COVID hit, and it really it was, I mean, traumatic for many people in many different ways. But first was the uncertainty. Then investors kind of got a little more conservative, um, and then we found construction companies were really struggling. And that so there was this kind of like gray area, but then we realized that they were now tasked with doing more with less. They would send half their teams home, and then we saw an increased demand, maybe let's say 3 months after COVID hit. Once the dust settled, we saw that, hey, these companies actually need it. We end up having to change our whole customer success piece. Um, Sometimes, I guess, in tech, you feel like the technology should do it. But then when we realized that these companies really help, we started our customer success piece where we'll visit Shantytown, help onboard the tradesmen, check on them, and really make sure it's working for them. And it was something that they needed. That the tech by itself wouldn't have done it. So it's been, and now we're gearing up for another fundraise. So it's been a journey. It's been such a journey. I did not anticipate. Um, I'm grateful. I think we landed another deal right at the beginning of the year that's gonna give us some more exposure. So there's a lot of exciting things happening. At the same time, 2020 has been such a challenging year for any startup, really any company. And for us, once we saw demand increase, it became even, it was like we ended up having to do more with less to serve our customers if we wanted to keep growing. And so it's been such a defining year. But am I where we want to be? Not yet. I'm still working with some students on the machine learning pieces. We've laid out the foundation, and we've kind of created the databases, but really being able to, and we've ran a few tests where we're able to predict price and predict approval time, but really be able to have a robust system that shows you live updates in the app is things that we're just not there yet. And we'll get there as soon as we're able to raise a little more money and bring a little more people on. So things like that, I'm, I struggle with the industry as a whole, particularly contractors. It's ripe for innovation, so they'll accept, you know, not that they'll accept, the level of technology we're producing is works for them, but I know there's so much more that can be done. So I find myself frustrated that we're not able to bring new tools. Like a lot of tradesmen have accents, and Polish guys, Spanish guys, Jamaican guys, and we want to be able to offer our app in multiple different languages. Um, I know Google. There's no. I was talking to a natural language processing engineer at MIT, and there's no language processing for accents. There's just none. Like no one has built a model. It just doesn't exist. But being able to offer our product in multiple languages are things that we like to do. So that there's quite a few that I would like to be able to bring to market, but we're just not there yet. And right now we're just getting contractors to trust that there's a better way to do what they've been doing is enough of a hurdle. And I many meetings I never mention machine learning tools. I never mention people analytics.
It's too scary.
It's too, yeah, it's just too scary. Right now it's just I can save you time, I can get you paid faster, and I can give you automated log in the palm of your hand, and you don't have to update Excel.
That's very important. Yeah, you need to start with the most vital tasks, with the most vital functionalities in the beginning, and build up on that.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's been a journey, man. Not quite where we want to be, but grateful for what we've been able to achieve in the past few years.
Somebody is asking if we use BIM standard or something. No, we are talking about a tool for tracking financial for companies, for contractors. It's called TrackFlow. Now, before you start showing a little bit the application, short demo, let me clarify why I invited you here. For everybody, just so you know, I'm not sponsored to do this. I did this because I see this tool solving a lot of issues that we have in our BIM world as well, and at the same time uses technologies that we also want to use to break the silos. This is one very important mission with my BIM mission, right? And I see this in a way like how issue management is working. In the same way, this tool TrackFlow is helping contractors or clients or other stakeholders to save money and time and have better overview and reduce the risk on projects. So this is the reason why I do this. Now you can please show us a little bit around the application.
Yeah, no problem. And I could also I could speak to that a little bit. I
Yeah.
have been approached by a few people in the BIM space. A lot of people who are doing reality capture around how do you go from reality capture to including finance and the progress payments. And it's been where we see it going is ultimately each line item. So when we talk about the construction requisitions, change order, these are line items in construction billing. And there is a belief that you can get to the point where you can tag line items to actual built in place pieces and complete that line item as a percentage of how much sheetrock is installed on the wall. I think a lot of people called it I was told if BIM is 3D, then if you add time to it, that's 4D. If you add finances to it, that's 5D. Is what I've been told.
Yeah.
So that there's room there in terms of being able to ultimately tag this to actual performances. Where we're focused right now is the accounting piece, the cost piece, all the approvals that has to happen to be able to say a project is at a certain percent completion, which currently happens. The question becomes who are the BIM leaders who are now going to be able to provide a digital report or be able to say, hey, this is at a certain percentage completion, have contractors agree on that, and then we'll be able to help with, all right, what does that actually mean for the payment requisition and the line items? I think that's where it's going. But I've met with a few partners, potential partners who are on the front end doing the data capture on the front end to talk about how do you tie in to the finance piece. So there's room there still, but as an industry, we're still figuring it out.
Yeah. Okay, that sounds good.
Okay, so let me stop sharing. Let me pull up a demonstration. So this is a demo site. So this is not an actual site. This is just part of our demo site.
But by the way, this is not like it's an app that works on Android and iOS on both these platforms, or
Yeah, so we're in the Android store. We're gonna be in we're in the Android store. We should be in the iOS store. By probably in the next week or so, we'll be in the iOS store.
okay.
And then we're also coming out with integrations for Procore and BIM 360. So
Yeah.
you'll be able to use our tool regardless of what your GC is using, and be able to, and then for those gaps that like the BIM 360 doesn't do or the Procore doesn't do, we tend to fall in.
Okay.
So so where was I?
What would be a specific workflow? Let's think like that, right? Let's see how this starts and what is the workflow in
Yeah,
using this?
so the workflow would be a subcontractor. So for my first example, a subcontractor foreman would create a ticket, would be able to say, hey, um, I've had a change event and I need a document. I need you guys I want to notify you guys that something has happened. And with that, they're able to, I'll go back, I'll create one. They're able to kind of create this ticket. So on the mobile, they have speech to text, so they're able to kind of speak in anything that happened. Added extra guys for work. If there's a PCO number,
What is a
anytime.
PCO number?
PCO number is potential change order number. So oftentimes, general contractors would, when they see that their change is coming in, they want to track that with a potential change order number before they determine is it an actual true change or not.
Yeah, makes sense.
Then we also provide invoice numbers. So sometimes the subcontractors, they'll like to bill it out. We have this option. Is a ticket signed offline? So what we see with a lot of our trade partners is there's some spectrum to going digital. So we give them the option that if they have a paper ticket, you can go ahead and snap a photo and now turn that paper one into a digital record, and everyone's informed of that digital record. Or if they want to go ahead and write it in themselves, they can do that. So we give them the option to, hey, do you want to snap a photo of your ticket? And again, when we talked about what technologies, that opens the room for being able to snap a photo and actually read the ticket, all those kind of things. There's potential there. We're not there yet, but just by creating that option, you can create those type of tools. So we're gonna say this wasn't signed off. They're able to on your mobile device, you add phone, video, voice note, whatever type of the best way you feel that you can document that something happens. They're given an option. Just gonna add a picture of something. Let's add a track flow picture. And then this is the piece that really turns into what have financial impact. And this is the labor types. So, particularly unions, they're very litigious around what labor should be paid for and how much. So when a tradesman goes in and says, hey, I had a regular carpenter, it was overtime, there was 3 of us, and added 8 hours, which is their normal process. Because we actually capture the labor rates up front, we can immediately tell every stakeholder what's the financial liability created in that moment. That was a process that would typically have to go to 2 or 3 weeks of getting that information, going back to the office, finding out the rate sheets, so submitting an estimate, and then understanding what the financial impact can be. Now, by having these sites connected, by simply just putting these things in, I have a carpenter overtime, we can start telling the stakeholders, hey, at this rate, this is a financial risk. I'm gonna click this button to add costs to just kind of give you how quickly that is in terms of, and all these rates are, when contract starts, you have your pre-approved labor rates. So when we onboard our customers, we allow them to upload those pre-approved labor rates. And this hasn't even been approved yet, but just by looking at it, we have the data to say this is the financial exposure for this. And it's not even approved. This is just a guy's documenting what he perceives as the extra work that needs to happen.
Very, very nice. A lot of information.
So we'll go ahead and create the ticket. So this doesn't have costs associated with it. This your photo or your video. That little check mark means that this is an approved labor rate. We allow to make sure that the subs and the GCs are in agreement. And then they're able to send over that approval to all the stakeholders, any stakeholders at their company.
Can you choose more?
Yeah, you can add whoever's a part of your team.
Yeah.
I'm gonna select. I'm PM to PM.
Yeah.
You can add any messages. You can attach files. All this is also can be done for mobile.
But isn't possible to add in more recipients?
Yeah, you can add them. You can add your recipients from your client contact section.
Okay.
This is just pre-populated, so I have to kind of walk you through everything.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'm gonna say, can you please approve? So it was now sent out. I'm gonna go to my email. So this is now that your foreman, they get your superintendent gets an email that says, hey, this came in. It has all the information associated with it.
Yeah.
Has the ticket attached, and they're able to review online. So they're able to do this from their phone.
So you get here a list. Okay. Yeah.
And now you see us today, right? So now your GC, now you can start from the GC side or your owner side, you can start seeing as these comes in, as opposed to it being a piece of paper on a desk. I now know this was sent over today. It's in review. There's no cost associated with it. I can check on it. I can see that it was sent to Pam the PM, which is me. And now I can go through, approve it, add notes. This looks good. I can also revise, resubmit. I can reject it. All these things. So go ahead and approve it.
Can you do this also from the phone, right? You don't need to necessarily have a browser.
No, you don't have to be at your desktop. This could.
Yeah.
This is actually what it looked like. Yeah. So this is actually what it looks like on the phone. You just scroll up.
Very nice.
It looks like, all right, here's just a simple process. And now it sees the signature showed up. He sees when it was sent off. Can you please approve this? Everything, when it was created. But just by taking this simple process and turning it into a digital one, you end up capturing data in a way that ultimately allows you to be able to understand how quickly the financial cost on a project is changing, and be able to make informed decisions around what's actually happening. So here's an example of what this looks like as things starts rolling in, and you quickly start being able to see, well, what's that financial risk? There's still 200,000 out there. Who we need to prioritize? Who should we be contacting? what's approved and what's not.
Yeah.
But it starts with something as simple as this, and being able to instead of that being in a silo on a piece of paper, it being digital. Ultimately, as that project progresses, this is one trade. There's typically 20 to 40 trades on a site, all coming in simultaneously. That's when you start to see, okay, this quickly can be $500,000 worth of financial risk, and being able to identify that and make decisions just off of that information. We haven't get into, hey, I can send you an alert once something's been outstanding for too long. We haven't talked about, hey, I can start projecting out financial exposure if you keep approving at the rate that you approved at, or being able to identify who are the bottlenecks in your process and who actually has the, I don't call it approval rate, but which which team players are actually you should focus on in terms of helping them do the things necessary to reduce the financial risk. But just being able to identify those gaps. We're not talking about, throwing people under the bus, but we're talking about, if you're in a project manager, how do you identify the gaps on your team and make sure those who are holding up a process that's creating financial risk, that they're aware of it and that they can be trained and that they can make the adjustments. Those are the pieces those are the next level. Right now, we're just putting information in one place, but as we progress and as we really start thinking about what we can do with this data, that's when it becomes, these are now powerful tools that is changing the way we work. And that creates those interactions where you can now tie it into a BIM model and be able to compare what's happening on the project financially based on what the model says. And then comparing where we're at in the process because of that.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds very good. We have a question here from Heiko Deniz. What are your clients' experiences with handling in tickets? I imagine some contractors had handing in their tickets by the end of the week, pre-approved on the phone or site instead of when it happens.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. So we see that too. Like some guys have a day where they like to send all their tickets in. We give them the option. If they want to create it as it happens, we give them the option to create it and save it as a draft. They don't have to send it out for approval. They could always come back and send them off for approval a certain day. But for that super or that foreman, we see people like to have a day. But now, if you're a foreman and every time you create one, you send one out, that super just has to go down. They just have to check let's go to their log. They just have to check their log and they quickly know what's in review and be able to follow up on it and see exactly what happened, and so on and so forth. So we believe flexibility is key, whatever makes sense for project teams. But we see a little bit of both. We see supers who like approving everything on a certain day. We see foremen who send out things on a certain day. That flexibility is there to whatever makes sense for them. Yeah. But now, as opposed to going through a stack, this guy can be on the train going home, and not only can he say, hey, what happened, but he can actually say, oh yeah, that's what you can't do with the paper ticket, right? Like, oh, what happened? Oh yeah, now I remember, that jogged my memory. I'll go ahead and approve it. Wait, was it 3 guys? Those little pieces was making it a little bit more efficient for the end users.
Sure. Yeah, that sounds good. Are there any other important things you would like to mention, like you feel we did not cover?
Man, that's a great question. I guess it's I mean, it's there's so much. The one thing I definitely wanna leave you all with in terms of um what we're seeing out there and how to evaluate if tech is right for your company. Um, One thing that because I have roots in the construction industry, I don't believe that you throw a technology tool on a site and it just works. I just don't believe that. It just doesn't. And I've watched my industry really, you know, have to wrestle with what to do now, in the wake of COVID-19 and really forced to figure out what tools to use. And there's a part of our company and a part of me where in any company I think that you should do business with, but be thoughtful about how committed they are to the success of the project and what that actually means to them. Because I'm watching a lot of construction companies finally decide to use tech, and if they're not met with the right support, it kind of rubs them the wrong way. They end up having a feeling that this thing doesn't work, or it'll never work. And those are challenges that we're dealing with right now with people who've kind of been burnt in the past. So as to the listeners out there who are thinking about how to recommend and what tools to do, make sure that whatever company you choose, that they have a thoughtful process around working with trades, working with your stakeholders to make it successful. And I think that's such an important piece because it's making or breaking how our industry adopts technology. And I'm biased. I think you have to know the guys to really serve them. So I know that comes from my head, and I know it works for our company. But with any tool you go out there, make sure that you're thoughtful about what it's going to take for your team to actually implement it, and that company is also thoughtful about it, because that's really going to allow us as a whole to be able to embrace the new technology tools, as opposed to feeling like it was something that was forced on them, or feeling like something that they just had to do.
Yeah. What can you tell us about the onboarding process? How difficult it is?
Onboarding. it's relatively simple. So anytime we onboard a subcontractor, we do a 30-day success plan. And like one of your clients mentioned, a lot of guys, they have a day where they like to do their change orders: Thursday, Wednesday, whatever. Coffee breaks on Friday. They have a day. And we'll pretty much lay out, these are the things that you're going to have to do for the next 30 days. And we're confident that if you do use our system every day for the next, not every day, every week, or that meeting that you have for 3 or 4 weeks in a row, that you'll have it. And we're going to be there for you. We're going to be there for you to make sure that's happening. So the first thing we do, we come in, we set your site up, we'll pull in your labor rates, we'll put in all those things that you need to actually use it. We'll meet with the PMs so that they understand their parts. If there's estimators and APMs, meet with them. And we'll also go to Shantytown to meet with the foreman. We like to meet them in their spaces because that's where the work actually happens, and that's where we want them to be comfortable with the tool. And then with that foreman, again, like if there's a weekly thing that they do, we follow up with them, have a call, walk them through it. And we feel like once we get them to do it 4 or 5 times, then you're kind of good. So for us, we don't when we start up, we come in with, hey, this is the 30-day plan. Because if we don't help you change your behavior in the next 30 days, then there's going to be something that your boss told you have to use now, and that it doesn't, and that's what we work really, really hard to avoid. And that's what we believe is the true power of the tech, is it should change behavior. So that's how we approach it.
Yeah, that sounds very, very nice. Very thoughtful process, and that sets the client to succeed in implementing and using the software. That's good. What can you tell me about the pricing?
Pricing. So everything's negotiable. We average around 20 basis points on change order transactions. So I think that's 20 basis points is like what, $2 for every $1,000 or something like that. I think that should be around there. Yeah, about $2. So that's where we average. Typically, that's usually where we start negotiations, around that point. Most of our subcontractors, they're fine with uh, a few $100 a month, and we'll let them use it across their projects. For major general contractor projects, we tend to be and just above $1,000 a month, and that'll cover all the subs on a specific project. And we're still everything's negotiable. We understand that we're earning trust and that you're trusting us with a particular part of your business. So we're always open to, hey, let's do a certain trial. Let us prove it to you. And that technique has worked well for us in terms of getting us into some major firms and allowing us to prove
The
how we do
potential.
this, the potential. So we get that. We get that. We're not where our motivations are around helping change the industry, and we're and yeah, we're a startup, so we do want to grow. We do want to all those things are important. But where we're at in our life journey as a company, it's all about proving trust and proving that this works. And yeah, so.
Yeah, what is with this trial period? Like, do you have a specific terms regarding this, like a specific period companies can try it, or how does this exactly work?
Yeah, we I think it's case by case basis. I think we've done up to 90 days because you kind of need like 90 days to really make it.
Yeah.
And depending on the size of the project and the size of the client, we'll be willing to negotiate terms that make sense. If it's a smaller job, we may go with a 30-day because we believe that the job's moving so fast that you got to blitz it. And if we give 90 days, it won't, we want to have a quicker proving point. So it's always negotiable, but up to 90 days.
Okay.
Unless you have a real compelling offer, and then we could assess from there.
Yeah, sure, but it's not like something you have it on your website, try it for 15 days or 30 days. You need to have a discussion and talk with the company, see how can you help them, and after that, set the terms for that, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Okay, awesome, Khalid. It was very nice. How can somebody contact you?
That's a great question. You can reach me at Khalid, KHALID, at TrackFlow, TRACFLO.io. You can also follow us on LinkedIn. That's where we actually get a lot of our folks where we're having conversations. Just Khalid David, TrackFlow. But yeah, LinkedIn is probably our best if you just want to be social, you want to jump on a chat, you just want to, hey, listen, I'm not even trying to buy anything. I just kind of trying to fill stuff out. LinkedIn's the best way to reach me. I'm very active there and showing what we're doing, talking about our customers, sharing some of the content that we're producing. So that's probably the best place to reach me, if not directly by email.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much for taking the time and for joining me.
Thank you so much, man. This was great. This was insightful. I'm glad that you guys heard my story, and I'm glad that we're able to talk about where technology is going and what's next.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, everybody that watched this live and who asked questions. I really appreciate that, and I really hope more of you will join in the future sessions. Yeah, I wish you a nice day.